everybody, to another episode of Learn Biz. I'm your host, Ethan Migliori, here with the notorious Ryan Murray.
I like that. That feels good.
Good. One of these days, I'll get the perfect introduction. But until then, you get what you get.
I like it.
So, for our episode today, I came across a podcast, and actually came across the transcript of the podcast is how I found it, which I'm probably going to search out the podcast more, because this interview between Clint Betts, who was the host, and Samuel Wilson, who's with 8x8 out of Silicon Valley, was just a fantastic one, talking about just business in general, business leadership, just some really good business principles. And I thought, wow, this is really a great one to cover. And so that's kind of what I want to do for the episode today, is cover what they were talking about, share kind of where they were, maybe some of our insights on some of the principles that they share, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, sounds
good
great.
With that?
I'm good with that. So,
okay.
I mean, why don't you jump in and with some of the principles? I'm sure knowing me, I'll have plenty of opinion to share.
Yeah, that's good. It'd be boring if you didn't share your opinion. So, as they get into it, I like the first part that he kind of gets into, and they were starting to talk about AI, but it kind of shifted for a minute as they were talking about research, R&D, and other things like that. And he said, you can bet that if you're spending $1,000 and your competitors are spending $10,000, they're going to outdo you every time. And that is such just a great principle to remember in so many aspects of business, that you got to put the money where it's needed.
Well, okay. So that was early on in the podcast, and it really struck a chord with me. So first off, I don't disagree with him. However, I want to challenge some of these things. So I feel like I love the classic example of the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers, first in flight. At the same time, there was a guy who was given a grant to figure out how to fly. And this is the early 1900s. He was in New York. I forget the guy's name, so I apologize. I'm doing this off the top of my head. He was given a grant that in today's money was worth about $1 million, I believe. And he was using gliding principles. He was the world-renowned expert of gliders. And so you picture hang gliders where they go up to these cliffs that have, the nice wind currents, and they'll float, but they're always getting pulled down. There's no way to propel up. And the problem is that they were on the wrong path, so there was no way for success being on this wrong path. So I don't want to totally suggest that you can spend your way, because the Wright brothers, they were just bicyclists.
Yeah.
They would repair bicycles, and they took principles of bicycles and bicycle efficiency and said, how can we convert this to flight? And they, and they were first in flight. And so I want to steer away from this idea that you can spend your way to success, because I've seen people that think if you throw more money at it, that it will succeed. So I'm going to put a caveat. This is my own caveat, and I'm going to say, if you're on the right path already, the guy that spends $10,000 versus the guy that spends $1,000, the guy will win. If you're on the right path already. If you're not on the right path, throwing more money at bad, that's just a waste of money. And so you got to be careful with this notion that money is going to solve the problem. But I think the point that he's trying to make, and I don't want to really deviate too far down there, I felt like the point that he was trying to make is to say that, look, if someone's outspending you, you need to pivot in your approach, because you're going to get beat. And don't just go in for a beating. Don't just dump all your money to have someone who's going to out-innovate you, and then all of a sudden you now just lost all of your money.
Right. Just after that, as he was talking about research.
No comment.
I can't argue.
We're just moving on.
Well, I can't argue against it, because there's a lot of logic to it, and I like the fact that the clarity that, hey, if you're on the right path, that you're absolutely right. but I also agree. And I don't want to go to the reason why I shifted because
let's move on.
Because everyone's going to ask, well, how do I know if I'm the right path or not? I don't want to go down that road.
Okay.
That's
we're moving on. Next point.
I'll buy you a steak dinner later. His next point. I really like as he was talking about the market research and R&D and things like that. And I'm going to read the quote exactly because it's just fantastic. If you don't have the right data sets, you can't actually execute the next best action. And I can't even imagine how many times we have preached that when it comes to data.
I know, but this guy was slapping me in the face in a good way. But it was like, ouch. Yeah. Because how many times have we got this. Do you? Do you have the right data sets?
Yeah. But how many people don't even have any data at all?
Most.
Right? So I love the comment that, look, if you don't have the right ones, let alone any, you're not going to actually execute the next best action. You might get something that still is positive, but it won't be the best.
Yeah.
So that was great and just confirmed all the podcasts in the past that we've done talking about, get some data, get some numbers behind it, have something quantifiable to help you make good decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
So, and then he talked about, because they were talking about AI in there, and I like how he said for most businesses, AI is going to be more on the front of your businesses, helping customers get to where they want to be. And I like that because so many people, and we've done a little bit on AI, where's it going to go? What's it going to mean? And he just confirmed a lot of other stuff we're reading. And that is, on the front end, if someone's calling in for customer service, AI is really good at getting them from a complex question. And he uses, hey, I want a pizza. Okay, well, what kind of pizza do you want, right? Because there's a lot of choices. AI is really good at helping funnel that down to get them right to where they need to do it, to where you don't have to put a lot of warm bodies on it to figure out the algorithm. I'm not going to get that word out. Algorithm things are there to actually get the AI to work through those complex scenarios to get them right there. So when they do need the live body, it makes it super easy. So I liked how he shared what they were kind of doing with some AI stuff to help advance their company and strengthen their standpoint as a company as well. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add on some of the AI stuff. It's going to be so fun to watch where it goes.
The only thing that I would throw into AI is, and I did this in a presentation that I did recently where I was talking about the use of AI, and I just said that AI, in my book, is the same as the internet. When the internet came out, 25 years ago? About that?
In common use.
Yeah, so common use, well, same thing with AI. Like, AI has been around, but common use, it's 1 to 2 years old, right? Yeah. So 25 years ago, internet came out. And if you look at what businesses needed to do, there came a point where every business needed to be online to some degree or another. I believe that there will come a point, and that point is rapidly approaching. Like, I don't think you've got 5 years. I think you've got 2 years or less that you need to be using AI in your business. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to become an AI-centric business, and that doesn't mean that you need to replace all of your employees with AI. It just means that AI is going to improve certain processes, and if you don't understand where those improvements are, and if you're not using that, it's the same thing as, can I be in business without a website? Sure, there are still businesses today that don't have a website. Should I be in business without a website? Probably not. There are some rare cases where, but even in those rare cases, they might not have a customer-facing website. They almost always have a back-end portal for vendors and things like that. And so that's what I would say with AI is, learn where it fits into your business, embrace it. It's not going away.
Yeah. Another really interesting comment that he made that I think most people, as their businesses are growing, that they forget, and that is the CEO no longer is just tied to one function area.
This was
Was
my
that profound?
favorite thing that he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was looking at that and talking about shifting, and he talked about how it caught him off guard.
Yeah.
He wasn't expecting to have to shift gears so quickly. The other thing that he said in connection with this was, if you remember in the podcast, and you read it and I listened to it, so a little bit different, but in the podcast, he mentioned how there are certain networks that only his position can get. Not only he could get, but only his position can get.
Yeah, that's right.
And so as CEO, he said, am I using my time to go after those networks that will only respond to a CEO, or am I getting caught up in something that someone else can do? So with this idea of, bouncing from function to function to function to function, where should the time be spent? It was profound.
And I loved it. And it reminded me of the podcast we just had done previous. Well, I don't know if it was previous, but it was fairly recent that too many businesses forget that 20% of your actions are producing 80% of your results. Yeah. You need to know what that 20% is. And then clearly that's where I think he brought out is that I realized that I got out of my 20% that these are the things that only I can do, that no one else can do them. And I have to make sure that I'm doing them. And then I have to trust my people on that other 60% or whatever it is to make sure that they're hitting those things and not trying to babysit them. And then he went on about some hiring stuff that maybe we'll talk about too. But
and that right there, that's the crux of it, is to say, if you've got a company or an organization and it's not moving forward and you're waiting on the CEO to make critical decisions, but the CEO is so tied up doing day to day that someone else is capable of doing, even if the CEO thinks that they can do it better, they're not getting to the decision that only they can make. And it completely hampers the entire organization. The entire structure is stuck. They're waiting. They're in a traffic jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved how he pointed that out. I also loved, and just to kind of hit on this, because to me, like I said, this was the single most aha moment for me in this podcast. But I loved how he talked about how he would go from 1 second sitting down and reviewing the financials with the CFO to the next second he was now dealing with FTC regulations. Yeah. And it was like boom, boom. And he talked about the difficulty of transitioning that quickly, but it literally happened that fast, and how he needed to be able to transition that quickly. And I'm like, ooh, how many CEOs have I seen that gravitate to their comfort zone? They come from a finance background, so they're just going to stay talking with the CFO and kind of ignore that whole marketing department or ignore the inventory management that needs a CEO decision to be made. And it was beautiful.
Well, and then from there, I like that he kind of rolled that into, when he's out looking to hire people because he feels that he wants to be surrounded by the best. I love the fact that he says, look, I realize that the best of the best is not within 20 minutes of where we work.
Yeah.
Right? They're everywhere. And I need to go looking everywhere to find them. And I'm okay if they're somewhere else. Right?
The working hybrid model.
Yes. And then he gets into the hybrid model that he's a fan of it, uses it actively.
But, okay, he put a thing in place that I had not seen a lot of businesses do, and that is that they have a set budget to fly hybrid people in for, and I forget what he called them, but it was like 4 or 5 days of, I think it was a high octane, like
company retreat. Well, but
it wasn't a retreat.
He tied it into communications and relationships.
But the thing that I thought was so fascinating is everyone understands the importance of getting together, but they want to get together for meetings. They want to get together for retreats. And now, admittedly, I'm just listening to a podcast. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But the way I interpreted it it sounded like he brought them together for working sessions.
He did.
To force them to not just, like when you think of the meeting and you say, okay, everyone's coming in for the annual meeting and we're going to show the reports. No, these were roll up your sleeves, get in the workroom, and we are really, just making it happen as a team, so that when you go back to your remote, wherever that location is, you have bonded with this other teammate. He talked about the importance of having that connection and communication.
Well, and he said, I don't want to have anyone in my organization ever feel like they're isolated in their back room, right? So he was he gave a huge emphasis on communication, actively engaging and making sure people feel connected. But I liked how he said that that's part of our culture. He switched it so that that's who they are and that's part of their culture. So that it's an active piece of what they're trying to do to make sure that people are engaged at a high level. Because he felt that if communication, and he talked about, at a normal work environment, there's conversation around the coffee pot and there's conversation around the copier that helps build relationships.
Yeah.
And so he has to do things like that. If you're going to be in a hybrid model, I've got to find ways to create those same scenarios so those relationships are built so they don't feel isolated.
And I already hit on this, but I'm going to reemphasize, he put money toward it.
Yes.
He put enough money toward it so that it was happening. Because I see a lot of organizations that they have a training budget, but unfortunately that training budget is pretty pathetic. It's kind of, quickest to grab it, gets it. And, we've advocated against weak training budgets as long as we've been doing this show, that you got to have strong training budgets. But I feel like he took it a notch further and said, no, it's not just the training budget, but it's also, we're going to fly everyone in. We're going to have these high octane meetings on a regular basis.
Yeah. So that was really nice because everyone, including you and I, have been in scenarios where you see fractions in departments, or people want to be in a different department because this department just, if you're not sitting at your desk typing away the whole time, you're in trouble and blah, blah, blah. So I like the fact that he really did everything he could to, and I didn't think he tried to push it to where we feel like a family. I never heard any of that in his language, as much as we want to make sure that there's a great relationship and no one feels isolated. That's just great counsel, especially with this hybrid model that I don't think is going to go away.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people are trying to figure out that balance. And so that was some good counsel that he gave on that one. Another one that he talked about that was pretty interesting is he used a quote from Howard Schultz with Starbucks, where Howard Schultz says, if you want your customer treated well, you have to treat your employees well, right? And I think that's principle is really common in most leaderships, that it starts internal, right? If your employees are happy, they enjoy what they do, that's going to ripple into your customers as well and how they get treated. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I think that's just great counsel.
Not much more that you can say by that one. And then he spent a lot of time about lead by example.
Oh yeah.
And this is where if you read any about it, he references his military background a couple of times and some experiences he had there about leading by example. And that one, to his credit, he did a great job of talking what he meant by lead by example.
Oh, okay. So I feel like it was a little bit harder for me personally to relate to the military experience because I don't have the military experience, but he did put something out there that was totally relatable. And that was, he said that there's not this, and he kind of referenced the Animal Farm.
Yes.
Which I loved that. Yeah. He said, it's not that we're all equal except for the pigs.
Yeah. Some animals are equal, but pigs are more equal.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah. You got the actual quote.
I put it, because I was impressed with why he was talking about that as tale, so I put the exact quote in my...
But the example that he gave is everyone in his company flies coach, including him. So the CEO of a multi-million-dollar Silicon Valley business, and he's like, I fly coach because my engineer is also flying coach.
Yeah. And matter of fact, he says, I can promise you right now, I have more miles flying coach than anyone else in my organization.
Yeah.
So that was just fantastic to say, hey, look, you know what? If you want people to treat you as equals and you want those relationships to be, and you want to lead by example, you literally, you can't say, hey, you know what? You're great, but I'm still better and smarter than you. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
You find that all of a sudden people are turned off and you don't get the continuity that you want running through the organization.
Yeah. And I liked, even at the end, he was kind of, so the question was asked, what do you think of the Silicon Valley market or environment? And, he really kind of got after other companies for getting caught up in the hype of private jets and fancy cars. And he's like, no, good businesses solve problems. They want to make the world a better place. And when you get distracted from that and start chasing this prestige or wealth, then you lose the prestige and wealth. He's like, if money comes in doing a good thing, great. Yeah. If money doesn't come in doing a good thing, great.
Yeah.
Like that's a cool attitude.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever heard me say, look, if someone makes a mistake, I'm not going to fire them, because if I fire them, I have to fix the mistake. And as far as I'm concerned, you're going to fix your own mistake, right?
Yeah.
Now,
we've talked about this.
So he shared something that I really liked as well. He says, I'll never fire anyone for missing results. That's not going to happen, but I'll fire you if you're not willing to say, hey, we missed our results. Here's why we missed our results. This is what we learned from it, and make changes and improvements.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I totally relate to that one, because that's exactly how I think. I really like that he laid out, the steps of, hey, this is why we don't fire someone, and because we want them to learn from it and grow from it. That's how we get better, is having opportunities to grow. And by firing someone for making a mistake or missing the results, you don't allow a company to grow.
Right.
Right. You're just putting people back into another peg, hoping that someone will actually be successful.
But you've already paid for that mistake. You might as well reap the benefits of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And he truly felt that by using that model, that's why they're getting better results, because people aren't afraid to take some risk. Mm-hmm. They're not afraid to say, hey, look, you know what? At some level, what we do in every work environment, there's an argument that at some level what you do is an experiment, right? We're trying to find ways to be better, more efficient, more effective, and that means errors are going to be made. And I don't know if I put it in there, but at some point in time, he flat right out said, look, I'm not perfect. I don't believe for a second anyone underneath him is perfect. So with that in mind, let's not go down that road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's realize that one and work together.
Yeah.
So I really like that one. Now this was an interesting question that Clint asked him about empathy in the workplace, because that's kind of a hot topic right now in a lot of leadership stuff and how, books I've read. And when I saw that first question, I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting to see how he answers this one. And he had I thought was a great answer. He said, look, I try to create safe spaces, right? Because when you're in a safe space, you're more open about things. You're not defensive about it. That when you're in a safe space, that there's always a way to work it out so that we can have good success. And as a matter of fact, he kind of tells a funny little glib. He says, yeah, if I didn't have a safe space, I wouldn't be married, right?
Yeah.
My wife would have fired me a long time ago. And I like how he said, my wife would have fired me, meaning that because of all the mistakes that he made from learning to be a good husband, father, etc. So that was a classic right there that kind of hit home with me as well, because if you have a family, that's one thing you're always trying to figure out is how to be a better husband, father. And many days, rightfully so, my wife should have fired me as well. But anyway, so that was a great one. And he didn't really, that I remember from reading, and I didn't put anything in my notes, that how to create a safe workplace.
I felt
there was a lot of pieces about realizing that you're not perfect and learn to communicate, which I did appreciate, but he didn't really say what, the key pieces that he was doing to create it.
Yeah. I don't think that there was much beyond what you've already commented.
And then going on to what we kind of touched again about, hey, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect type of a stuff. But I like that he said, when sometimes we make a mistake, every opportunity that we have, we try to run it again, right? We want the opportunity to run it again.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you fix things, is by running it again, and referencing Thomas Edison and the light bulb type of a thing.
Well, and he gave his military example where he was in a training and completely botched it.
Yeah.
And,
and through communication
and a subordinate is like, okay, what are we doing? And he's like, we're running it again because I screwed up. And the subordinate was surprised.
Yeah.
That the leader, the commanding officer would take that position to say, yeah, we're running it again.
Yeah, until I get it right.
Yeah.
So another great, when he talks about leading by example, that was a great one that he shared as well on that one. So, anyways, those are kind of the things I pulled out. I just thought, that's just great business counsel from someone who's what he feels. He made a comment that he feels a little bit inadequate as a CEO of a company like this one. And I think he even made the comment that, if you would have told me what was involved with it before you hired me, I would have said no. But now that he's in it, he does enjoy it, but he says it is significantly more challenging than what he would have assumed.
Yeah. No, it was a great article. I'm glad you came across it. But here at LearnBiz, we're looking for this type of content. So if any of the listeners, if you guys have great articles or great sources, we'd love to have those. So you can reach out, Ryan at learnbiz.co, and you can reach out to me directly. Let me know what those sources are. Ethan at learnbiz.co. If you like him better, because he.
Send everything to Ryan, especially the gripes.
He's got all those lovable characteristics. But anyway, thank you so much for jumping in. Anything else you want to?
No, we'll make sure that we link to that in the notes, and so that you can actually go and read through it. There was a lot of other good stuff in there that we just don't have time to pull out that he covered, and good food for thought. So anyone in a leadership role, great article to help improve your leadership qualities. So hopefully there's something you can take away from that.
Yep. Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks.